you seem to be very passionate about mental health. I saw that you have a degree in mental health. You're on PhD at the moment. What actually drew you to mental health?
It's quite a question.
Because I've been thinking of that. I've been thinking like, what was the attraction call to mental health?
A very long journey to my mental health career. I joined the British Army. So I was in the British Army, and whilst I was in the British Army, I served in Iraq in 2007. It was, yeah. So I served in Iraq. But whilst I was there, one of the guys, I was, a colleague of mine, Zimbabwean captain from the military. He was a mental health nurse there in Iraq. So me and him used to, have a good interaction. Supporting other colleagues out there. So I took interest in understanding all these mental health issues. Of course, having back home experience. So when I got back to the UK, and I then went to my mental health nursing initially. So once I graduated at SE2EP8 University in London, I worked in a few hospitals, and I went on to do interestingly a master's in war and psychiatry. So again, just trying to advance my knowledge in this space. I took on the PhD in mental health to do more research into this, understanding again what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
The misconceptions across borders, being the West and then in Africa, again a lot of the knowledge again across the world now, I should say, working here, working in UK, working in Sierra Leone. I also worked in Uganda briefly with youths that were affected by the conflict in Uganda. So bringing all this knowledge is something again I would like to impart in other countries that have not got systems in place or have structures in place to try and spread that word. That's what we're doing here right now. So our listeners to actually get more understanding about this topic, especially for our folks coming from Africa.
Ahmad Medical Corporation is a world-class institution for the healthcare of Qataris foreigners here in Qatar. Does Ahmad have a hotline or a reporting channel for anyone within Qatar who wants to report mental health issues?
Well, as a healthcare organization, we have a reporting line for you to report. If you're going to report mental health issues that you are having, yes, we have the hotline. I think it's 16,000. You can report. You can go there, call the number, and there'll be someone at the other end of the phone that will speak to you. It could be a psychologist, it could be a mental health nurse, it could be a psychiatrist, who will speak to you about your problems. Will assess to see where you are at in terms of your issue.
Yeah.
From whether it's low level, moderate, or severe. So again, they can signpost you to go to your primary healthcare to see someone there, or they can make a referral for you to a psychologist. It's not about challenging to say no. Stop thinking about this being a village issue or a voodoo that you're only going to seek herbalists, but there's no herbalist there for a start. What I don't know if grace. However, but saying, you have this belief that this person might cure you, or this is the medical interpretation of it as well, and this is the social interpretation of it. But you need to have someone who have the understanding of all these three aspects, where someone have different belief systems. So you have science, which is the medicines, there's evidence, there's research, and then there's also the social space that causes these things, and then you have that cultural belief. So again, you need to go through all these parts depending on the person you're speaking to, for them to actually understand what is happening. If you're able to neutralize, to get them away from thinking about it as a cultural thing, then you can then bring in the social aspects. But then if you're in that level of illness where they need the medicine, then you have to talk to them about evidence. This person was sick and he's taking his medication, he's feeling better.
Hello, welcome to yet another episode of the Inside Podcast. It's always a pleasure coming back to your screen each week. And today promises to be a very exciting edition. We're going to be discussing a very, very interesting topic which concerns everyone. But if you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? That is where you're going to see it whenever we upload new videos. So you have to make sure you subscribe, click on the notification bell so that you hear whenever we post new video, and make sure you share with your friends and family, even your enemies. You know, I always say this, all right, because everyone needs to hear about this, because today's topic is going to be very interesting and impactful. So please sit back and make sure you don't leave your seats. All right. So now let's talk about the topic of today. Mental health is no longer a silent subject. It is real, it's present, and it affects millions around the world, especially those living far from home. In a world where mental awareness is often overlooked, today's conversation brings the spotlight to what truly matters: understanding, support, and access. And in a region like the Middle East, Qatar is emerging as a leader in mental health care, offering not just world-class infrastructure, but also compassion-driven services that makes a real difference. Today, we're happy to be joined by Idris, who has expertise in nurse-led mental health intervention. He's also a clinical nurse specialist in learning disabilities at Hamad Medical Corporation, which is Qatar's foremost medical institution of global standard, caring for the health and well-being of all Qataris and foreigners here in Qatar. He holds a bachelor's degree in mental health nursing from the University of London and is currently a PhD student in mental health. He has a strong background in psychiatric and mental health nursing. Idris has dedicated his career to supporting vulnerable populations, especially individuals with learning disabilities. He previously served in the British Army before transitioning into the mental health nursing in 2011. He is also deeply involved in mental health policy, advocacy, and community outreach, contributing to both local and international initiatives. He has played key roles in mental health conferences in Qatar and beyond, in capacity building workshops also, and psychosocial support network in this region. His expertise bridges the clinical and human side of care, ensuring that mental health is treated not just as a medical issue, but also a social and emotional one too. Through his work, Idris has helped position Qatar as a model of integrating world-class medical systems with culturally aware and inclusive care. His insights are not just valuable, they are essential as we rethink how mental health should be approached in a changing world. So get ready for a powerful discussion on life, care, and culture, and how Qatar is setting a standard the rest of the world can learn from. So join me to welcome Idris to the show. Sorry, the introduction is so long. I wanted to make sure that I get every point in so that our viewers understand who we have in the studio. So thank you so much for joining us today on this set. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks so much for that colorful introduction. That's very kind of you. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure. It's a great pleasure. To June, it's Men's Mental Health Week month. You know, we didn't want the month to just go by without us having a section or an episode talking about the mental health, not just for men, but for everyone. Because mental health is how will I say, challenges are not restricted to men only. Okay, the women, the younger folks, the children, they all have possible challenges that relates to mental health.
Yeah.
So today I want us to dive deep, dissect and dissect, okay, this mental health issue so that our viewers get to understand better what the mental health concept is about, what actual role we have to play as individuals, as institutions, as government in trying to manage the mental health challenges that people face in their homes, in their workplaces, in the social space. All right, so we're going to start by first understanding what the mental health is about, because people still kind of mix up the meaning of mental health. You know, like where we're coming from in Africa, mental health is seen as people who are mentally retarded, people who have mental issues, people in African world we say madness. But actually, I have gotten to understand that you can be normal and have a normal conversation and still have mental health challenges. How true is this?
Absolutely.
So do you want to tell us what this mental health is really about? What does it really mean?
Thanks so much. Thanks for that question. And then, as you highlighted, mental health issue is a global issue. It affects everyone in every part of the world at different stages of life, from as a child up to adolescence, up to being an adult, up to becoming an older person in geriatry, as we say. If you ask me what mental health means, there is no one response to what mental health means because of the different interpretation or meaning of mental health based on, as you say, you mentioned Africa, where you're coming from, the way how people interpret it and how people define it. But in general term, you say mental health, mental ill health, as in when someone is unwell. I'm sure you've heard the saying of there's no health without mental health. Well, mental health in itself, you say is a complete or total wellness of someone. Because again, if you're not mentally well, or you're going through mental health difficulties, it's very highly unlikely that you're going to function really well in many aspects of life. You will not be able to look after your physical health for start, because you need to know what's happening with you in the first place. So a complete state of being in terms of being psychologically well, socially well, in some aspects spiritually well. These are all aspects of being mentally well, because there are different stages of when you talk about mental health or mental ill health, which stems from the lower level. You can say a low scale mental health to moderate or to a major. If I give an example, a low space of someone feeling having mental health difficulty, will be like, I'm stressed. That's kind of a low form of saying, when someone says I'm stressed, it might seem as a simple sort of word, I'm stressed. But if you dig deeper, you will see there's more things beyond that. And then you go up to things where people will say, I'm depressed. Okay. So you come from being stressed to being depressed, or becoming clinically depressed in a way where you're not able to eat, you're not sleeping well, you're not going out, you're not engaging with your peers, you don't want to go to work, you don't want to go to prayers, for example. So that's kind of like the mid-range side of things. Then you go up to the severe things, for example, like schizophrenia, where, again, you will need to be placed on medication. Sometimes you need to be placed in a hospital where, for your own safety or for the safety of the public. So again, there are various levels to how it's depicted or how it affects someone, and there's various aspects or various ways of defining mental health depending on where you're coming from.
Oh, okay. You said the low level, it's when someone say he or she is stressed.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how does one actually know when they've gotten to each level? For example, the mid level, which is the depressed.
Yeah.
At what point can an individual identify their mental illness?
Okay. So again, this goes down to having a lot of information about the topic we're discussing about now, mental health. So it goes down to understanding what we call like the symptoms of stress, right? So again, you'll have a baseline. I mean, most people will deal with what we call stress in different ways, whether it be culturally or using medical way of dealing with things. So if you are someone who is outgoing and someone who wakes up in the morning, you're very methodical. I wake up, I brush my teeth, I shower, I put my clothes on, and I go to work, or I go to school. And then when you get to a point where you're unable to do these kind of things, and you're sort of consumed in a lot of thinking about different things that happen in your life, and sometimes we call them psychosocial stressors. It could be stressors that come from psychological things or social things, either work-related, either money, or there's family issues, in relationship issues. So whatever the case may be, is there's something that's affecting you, that's stopping you from wanting to get out of bed, that's stopping you from washing or brushing your teeth like you usually do every day, that's stopping you from washing your clothes. Then that's when you can start within yourself knowing something is going wrong. However, when someone goes to a deeper state of being extremely stressed, they themselves might not notice these things. Somebody else, as a friend or family or someone close to them, might see some of these signs. They might see that there's less text messages, less telephone calls from this person. this person is not their usual self. They're not as clean as they are. They're not engaging well. So when you start seeing some of the signs, then it's good to ask people if that. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's okay for not to be okay. Okay, so we went to one of the sessions yesterday. But again, if you start feeling like you're not sleeping as much as you do, your mood is continuously low. You don't have any appetite to do anything. That's when you start realizing it. Something is not right.
It's not right.
Yeah. So if you go into the other stages, where say depression or anxiety, you know, again, a state where you feel really, really depressed. You don't want to leave the room. You don't even want to open the curtains. You just want to be in a very dark zone. You want to just be by yourself, right? And then in that state is where you have a really, really low mood. Because in most times, if you put it on a scale and you say to someone on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being like you're really, really low, I don't want to do anything, so like 10 being I'm happy. Yeah. Where do you place yourself? That can give you an indication. Because if I just ask you, how is your mood today? You're probably going to tell me, okay.
Yes, okay. Right. That's the easiest to say.
So again, that doesn't give me a clear picture. But if I didn't put it in a form of a ruler, then I can see where you are today. And I might even go further. How did you feel yesterday? And then what changes have occurred? Then you might probably say, I've had some family issues. I say I have some financial issues. I've got some work-related issues. Then you probably start peeling a picture of where some of the issues are that is changing the way I go about my business. That's different from the way how I go about my business.
I think one of the challenges on this mental illness is the fact that self-denial is a force in this whole situation. Because people are in that state, but they are not accepting that they are in that state. So how can there be a mind shift for people to start easily accepting who they are and where they are? Because you have to first of all accept it.
Yeah.
Because even if someone identifies it and tells you, you won't accept it. Because you don't want to accept the fact that, oh, I'm in that situation, or I'm in that level. So how can people start having a change of mind on accepting their own situation or their own position?
Yeah, it goes a long way from an internal point or an external point.
Okay.
Externally, from the stigma that surrounds it. Externally, from the consequences that, will come to you. Let's say, for example, you're at work and then you want to voice out that you have mental illness, mental ill health. How is the employer going to take it? How is your manager going to take it? So those external factors might affect how you perceive what is going on with you. Internally, you might see yourself, well, I'm a strong guy. I mean, from what I know about mental illness, as you say, maybe places in Africa, they say madness.
Yeah.
You're saying to yourself, I'm not mad. Again, it's about neutralizing the terminologies, neutralizing the definition of what it is, because mental ill health or mental health is a spectrum of things.
Okay.
Like you say, from the low level, as I said, being stressed, being depressed, to be have things like schizophrenia. This is just a few. You get onto people have bipolar disorder, personality disorders. There's a lot of things around ADHD. So depends on what's happening with you. But if we're sticking with just feeling low or feeling stressed, for you to have that inner strength is very difficult. And then also it gets even more difficult if you're already in the state, because it's difficult for you to understand what is happening. So it's difficult for you to have the energy to even think about what I'm going to do next. But again, it boils down to the resilience of how strong of a character you are in terms of getting out of situations that you feel difficulty psychologically and what you've done to get out of that. But if you're a person that is not in denial, but I would say don't want to be seen as, in some cases, weak, you might say, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not sleeping well. Yeah, I'm just thinking too much, because I've been out, without knowing probably you spending the whole night or till midnight because you don't want to come home to come to the same thoughts. Yeah. You're probably relating it. I've been out, that's why I've not been able to sleep. But you've been out because you're escaping from coming home. So it's about having someone to try and support you in understanding what is going on. Like other people will use what we call negative ways of coping with stress. They might know something is going on. They know they are very low. they know they're not sleeping, but what they do, they'll spend time in a pub, in a bar, drinking, because when they come home, they're not going to be sitting, they're going to be sleeping straight away.
Yeah.
So they're using alcohol or other substances, which is what we call maladaptive way of coping, because what that does creates something else. You're going to be craving, you're going to become addicted, you're going to spend money. So again, what you're running away from might become even more difficult because now you have a second problem to deal with. So you see, so having the understanding of what it is, how you're feeling, and understand how to communicate it.
Yeah.
And more so, understand where to go for help. Same as the program we went to yesterday, having body systems within your network, within your community, within the society, or even within the country as a whole, within healthcare systems, within cultural system, within faith-based system. In some churches and mosques, you go to the leaders and speak to them about your problem. They might be able to communicate with you about that problem based on that space.
But the challenge is stigma, like you mentioned before. People are concerned. People don't want to speak out because they don't want to have this picture.
Yeah.
They don't want to be seen in a certain way. They don't want to be perceived and defined in a certain way. So stigma becomes a problem, becomes a factor that stops them from coming out to speak.
Yeah.
Now, the more, from my understanding, the more you keep it inside, the more damaging it becomes. So at the end of the day, you need to speak. But if you speak, the stigma is waiting for you in some cases. So how can the society generally, whether it's the employer or it's the social space or the government, create systems or have a change of mindset about how they refer to those people? What's the protection they can get and how can this be achieved? I mean, stigma in question.
Yeah. So again, acceptance and raising awareness, accepting that anyone can go through this, can have mental health difficulties at any stages, and then employers or workplaces should neutralize that conversation and not separate it from all the physical issues people might have or the family issues that people might see it as part of a whole holistic system. You see the person, a holistic person, that they might come today and say, I've got COVID. They might come today to say, I've got a broken leg. They might come today and say, I have mental illness. So all these aspects should be treated as a whole if it's coming from anyone, rather than saying, if you have mental illness, you need to prove ABC, but we cannot accept you here because you have mental health problems. As I said, anyone can have, even a top CEO can be going through stress, can even be depressed and taking antidepressants, but nobody will know because one probably is understood what the illness is understood where to go for help, is taking the medication that he needed to take, and he's not missing his medication, so he comes to work as someone who is okay. But again, if leaders, this has come from leadership as well, acknowledge that they themselves can go through this phase, or they themselves have suffered from this. They themselves might have had someone who've gone through a loss or bereavement. They've lost a family member and that's impacted them. They've not been able to come to work because of that. They've had a child who's been sick and that's disturbed them. So if they see that and say, well, this is happening to me, but an employee who is in the low grade, even down to the cleaner, also will have this kind of problem. So if they come up to me and say, I have this issue, there should be systems in place of how to address those issues without stigmatizing, without discriminating, without any severe consequences. It's easier said than done because there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and employers are doing work around in Qatar. There's, again, from the ministry, there's policies in place that serve as protection and support for people. And policies are policies most of the time, but implementation can be a problem, of course. So implementation is there. You have the senior level managers, they'll support it. Medial level management are the ones who should be communicating this and make it understood by the people below. But as you know, in most places, it's all about results, it's about outcomes, it's about processes. So they tend to boycott some of these things. It's about numbers. They don't want to have 5 people saying, I've got mental health problem because there's too much work. Okay. Which is, in effect, there's a lot of evidence that shows, work-related stress can cause mental health problems.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What you just said now about policies. In Qatar, are there policies existing for companies and employers to implement in their various institutions or organizations?
Well, for my organization, and I believe for most organizations, through, I guess, to the labor ministries, work and pensions ministries, you find those policies in place. In my organization, Hamad Medical Corporation, they have a very robust, what we call a well-being program that supports holistic well-being. In fact, I think they won an award recently as one of the best wellness program in the Middle East, I think. And then, so when you have organizations like that who lead on these things and share what they're doing and how it's impacting a lot of people. You see in one of the presentation yesterday, so you saw one of the presentation about the stats that showed if you invest in supporting the wellness and well-being of people within your workplace, you are more likely to spend less money in losing workers or recruiting workers than actually spending in well-being programs. So I know there are policies around Qatar that stipulates that employers should follow and adhere to the workplace, what we call occupational health policies. So these occupational health policies include physical health, mental health, and social well-being.
So is this actually monitored? Is the government monitoring this organization? Because I'll tell you that for the Ministry of Labor, when they started the welfare programs, the Ministry of Labor made sure that organizations implement in detail. Every organization. So there were penalties for people who are not, organizations that are not complying. So the enforcement was good. So can same be implemented for mental health?
Absolutely. It can be implemented. However, I'm sure there'll be challenges in the way what we call is monitored to check whether people are compliant with these policies. There's two ways. One, there needs to be evidence that people are reporting that they have mental health problems. There should be some kind of audit system to say this is the percentage of people within this organization that have reported mental health issues. And within this percentage of people, these are the people that have been supported using what the policy says about how you support these people. And then you might also look at whether there's complaints being made where someone is reported that they've had mental health issues and then they've been treated badly. So again, what we call policing this or auditing it or checking for compliance can be difficult because most workers might not want to report because they might be treated differently, although they might not be treated differently in their face for them to know you're treated differently because they're not going to give them a letter to say you have mental health problem, go. They might put other things in place that will make it difficult for you to say I have mental health problems. It's always a challenge, but then some organizations are better at it than others. But again, if employees know their rights and how to report these kind of issues where they've reported these kind of things and they know there's policies that govern these things, they should approach people who are there to advocate for them.
Okay. We're going to talk more on this, especially reporting process or methods of reporting, because that's one avenue that can help people or encourage people to report these cases in various organizations. But we're going to come back on this. Thank you so much for joining us past far. It's been so amazing. I told you this discussion is going to be very, very interesting. Mental health, it's not just a joke. It's something that concerns all of us. So today we're going to go deep. We've started, we're going to go deeper pretty soon. But if you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe, share with your friends, your family, and make sure everyone sees this episode. And also follow us on all our social media platforms at The Inside Qatar. You find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We are there for you to give you amazing content. Idris, thanks so much for sharing thus far. I want us to start from the misconception. What do you think is the most, how should I put it now, what's that misconception you want to clear about mental health? All right, that even people in Qatar, people back in Africa, because the Inside Podcast is a podcast that talks about the ties, the social, cultural, and economic relationship between Qatar and Africa. So you get to hear so much of Africa from me, because this is what we're about, talking about Qatar, talking about Africa, how we can share ideas, how both regions can get better in terms of the information we share here. So I want to ask, what is that misconception on mental health or mental health illness that you want to address?
Well, we mentioned the stigma, but again, in Africa, you hear the word the taboo around it, where people will relate mental health or interpret it as, for example, in Africa, they'll say in some places is witchcraft or voodoo, right? Well, again, in the West, in most places, it will be seen as an illness that affects anyone. But even within those communities, depends on how they interpret it. But again, if you look at Qatar, as you say, the population in Qatar is of a high percentage of people from different parts of the world. And then if you look at the labor force, workforce, people from Asian Pacific countries, and then there's a larger population again from Africa. So there's a saying where people say you take the African man or woman from Africa, but you cannot take the African from them, because they're here. That doesn't mean their ideology or their understanding about this topic has changed all of a sudden. So that still remains probably still remains the same. That misconception, in terms of neutralizing it, is again bringing road shows, having talks like this, where people can then understand what the topic is.
It's about, yeah.
So again, knowing the levels at which this can affect people, and also people understanding that is not probably how they describe it in different parts of the world where people have come from. So it's not a witchcraft issue, and then also it can be caused by situations where you find yourself, i.e., not being in the country where you're from. You're away from home, you're away from family, you're away from your children, your kids. You don't have the same support system that you have. You're sharing accommodation with people of different cultures, of different nationalities, of different religion. So again, you are sort of boxed in some way. Again, saying to people, what is happening to you now is not as a result of maybe someone back home is doing something for you. Again, it's looking at it about what is happening now. Saying to them, what is happening with you now that's different from what was happening before, and what has changed? What do you think is happening? It's asking questions about their upbringing, because a lot of when we talk about mental illness or mental health, it stems down also into the life course from when you were born, how you were raised, the people that you were around with, the support systems that you get, to things that you face now and how you perceive those things. All right. If you have a very difficult childhood and in a space where you probably see a lot of violence occurring and things, when you grow up as an older person, the way you respond might be different to someone who's come up from like a very calm family and knowledgeable about these things. On the flip side of that, someone, again, I'll say in Africa, who's was born and grew up in an environment that has a very good support system, and there was challenges. Maybe there's no lights, there's not enough food, but they've built up some inner resilience because they used to kind of navigate adversity. So they might come here and still be a resilient person. It just depends on the individual, how they perceive things and what's happening. But again, the social issues that we face might exacerbate those things. But I mean, to neutralize the misconception, most of the things involves having programs like this, body programs, have people go within the community and spend time and speak to people, even during their church event, during their mosque events within their locality, because the language is better understood within the community. If someone say that people that live in the, in staff camps or accommodation area, and they're coming to pray in the mainstream mosque here, the preaching is about what is happening, about that topic, to be specific, or what's happening that month. If the preaching is being done in the community, is about issues
that happens within
the community. So the language is better understood by those people, right? Same as workplace. The way mental health is probably discussed within the health system is different from how it can be discussed in a construction system, because people are working outside, they're working long hours, they're working night shifts. So again, how that might affect their mental health might be different. So there needs to be a different space of neutralization by different people. to choose that misconception.
From what you said earlier, I want to go back to Africans who believe that once they have a change in their well-being, it's related to issues back home, someone being throwing attacks. I just want to be very African now.
Yeah.
But what I need them to understand is this could just be natural causes from the mental health scheme of things. It's not really about people back home, witches back home. It's actually how you take care of yourself and the results of the care you've taken, right? So this mindset is what we have to change, because if they don't change it, they start praying for what medicines can take care of.
Yeah.
Or they start worrying for what little care, extra care can take care of. This is where I'm coming from. I don't know if you get my point.
Yeah.
So this is very important for people to know that the mental health challenges you face or you get to experience is not really based on where you're coming from. It might just be about your environment, about your workplace, about how you take care of yourself, about the attention you give to yourself. We need to differentiate these two things.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you keep yourself in a space where you get more internal damage because of loss of time, of taking action to actually remedy or take care of what the situation is.
Yeah.
So I hope this is making sense to our viewers.
Yeah. It's interesting you said you're going to be very African. Of course, I've worked within this space in the UK and, modernized mental health facilities, same as here in Qatar.
Yeah.
Modern mental health facilities and professionals. But I've also worked in Sierra Leone doing the Ebola as a mental health professional. And then, we've seen some of the challenges and misconception even when the Ebola struck.
Yeah.
And it is people were affected mentally or psychologically as a result of what happened, because it was all sudden. Many people were dying. There was no answers to the whole thing. And there was misconception about is a white man's illness. This was manufactured. And of course, people were struggling psychologically to deal with these issues. So even when we went there, so it was easier for them to even see, or people there to see. I'm from Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
I went there to work doing this. So going into the communities to neutralize the conversation made it easier, because there were times where people were brought into the treatment centers where families were not allowed to visit. They cannot see their loved ones. So again, we put up some systems in place, as we're talking about systems and policies, right? To be able to navigate how we can create some sort of communication and belief and trust in the system and trust in what we're doing. We then created we brought in iPads where we go to the community, we speak to the family member, we ask them questions about their concerns, we come to the center, we speak to the person who's at the center to say, yes, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm being treated, nobody's poisoning me. So we take the video back to the community so they are able to see that. So having systems like that where you bring in the discussions in the community in a very easily understood way is one of the ways you can deal with these things. And again, once we were there were communications around, we got into the community, we find people with more probably existing mental health problems or problems that's been exacerbated by Ebola, where people have beliefs about mental illness being voodoo, and they will only go to
herbalist. Yeah.
But you can probably still find people here who still have those perceptions. However, it's not about challenging to say, no, stop thinking about this being a village issue or a voodoo, that you're only going to seek herbalists. Well, there's no herbalist there for a start. Well, I don't know if grace. However, but saying, you have this belief that this person might cure you, or this is the medical interpretation of it as well, and this is the social interpretation of it. But you need to have someone who have the understanding of all these three aspects, where someone have different belief systems. So you have science, which is the medicines, there's evidence, there's research, and then there's also the social space that causes these things, and then you have that cultural belief. So again, you need to go through all these parts depending on the person you're speaking to for them to actually understand what is happening. If you're able to neutralize to get them away from thinking about it as a cultural thing, then you can then bring in the the social aspects. But then if you're in that level of illness where they need the medicine, then you have to talk to them about evidence. Like, this person was sick and he's taking his medication, he's feeling better. A simple example could be, okay, you have headache. Are you going to attribute it to a voodoo, or are you going to take paracetamol?
Panadol, yeah.
Panadol works,
Yeah.
Okay, you have headache. You didn't have money to buy paracetamol. There's no herbalist, but did you go to sleep and then you woke up? Do you feel better? Yes.
Yeah.
So this, there is the way of explaining it so that someone can understand. So these are some of the things we can do.
Okay. That makes sense. Now let's go to the workplace. Yeah. The reporting system within Qatar. I want us to talk about it in levels. First, are there existing channels? Let's say individuals in the workplace who are victims of employers' strict measure against people who have mental illness or challenges. Let's talk about it from that side. Like, they want to report it because within their system, within their organization, there's no reporting structure of importance to this. All right, they are not giving them the opportunity to talk, or even if they speak out, they are being punished, or they are getting pay cuts, they are getting the stigma. So because of that, they are holding back. But are there external structures within Qatar that people can call to report, or send an email, or go to an office to report mental health challenges, courtesy of their work, or any other challenges that must have caused them?
I'm not 100% familiar about all the structures within different organizations, if there's a central reporting point. But I believe with every organization, modern organization, there would have a system of reporting that if you make a report, can be anonymous in a way that goes to specific person that has nothing to do with your leadership line. So then if you send a report there, nothing happens. And I guess in terms of labor, there are probably labor laws, or Ministry of Labor would have things within there to say who you're going to report to, probably labor codes, for example. But your different organizations will have different policies around the reporting system. So I don't think there's a one size fits all to say, if this doesn't work, you go to this part of the organization, or you go to this ministry. Again, within the ministry is a big place.
Yeah.
And walk into the building, you might not know. So again, it's probably the question that we need to pose to workers in the front line, to say if they have knowledge and understanding of, they know the policies within their organizations that supports this kind of thing. Because if I can speak for my organization, Hamad Maker Corporation, we have the system and direct line of reporting some of these things, where you can report it first to your line manager. Yeah. If you think it's not been addressed, you can escalate it to your member. If he's not addressed, then you can report it through anonymous reporting system. And again, if that doesn't work out, you might speak to other independent people within the organization that you can speak to. That can support you.
Okay, let's say for Hamad Medical Corporation is a world-class institution for the healthcare of Qataris, foreigners here in Qatar. Does Hamad have a hotline or a reporting channel for anyone within Qatar who wants to report mental health issues?
Well, as a healthcare organization, we, as I say, would have a reporting line for you to report. If you're going to report mental health issues that you are having, yes, we have the hotline. I think it's 16,000. You can report. You can go there, call the number, and there'll be somebody at the other end of the phone that will speak to you. It could be a psychologist, could be a mental health nurse, could be a psychiatrist, who will speak to you about your problems. Will assess to see where you are at in terms of your issue.
Yeah.
From whether it's low level, moderate, or severe. So again, they can signpost you to go to your primary healthcare to see someone there, or they can make a referral for you to a psychologist. However, again, for most referral to secondary care, because you have levels of care. You have primary care, which is your PHCC. You go and see your GP. He addresses lower level issues.
Yeah.
And if you need secondary care, then they can refer you there, and you'll be seen by somebody in secondary care. And then also, if you need specialist support, you can be referred to specialist services. Like I work in the learning disability specialist service. We have the CAMS, which is the child and adolescent mental health services. There's all the adult services. So it depends. When you speak to someone over the phone, they can provide you support over the phone. I mean, if that support needs to be escalated, then they will signpost you to where you need to go. But to report your employer that they're not supporting your mental health problem, I don't think Hamad has got that capacity for you to report your employer to say they're not dealing with your mental health problems.
Okay. I think that would most likely lie with the Ministry of Labor.
Yeah.
I think there should be a reporting system, which very soon we're going to have the Ministry of Labor come on this set to also talk to us about reporting structures in terms of mental health, in terms of challenges with their employers, whether it's salaries, whether it's transfer, whether it's immigration issues, everything that concerns the workplace system structures under the Ministry of Labor. We'll be bringing them here to talk to us, because at the end of the day, this platform is about being informative, sharing the information, the insight that the people need to move on and exist in Qatar. But you seem to be very passionate about mental health. I saw that you have a degree in mental health. You're on PhD at the moment. What actually drew you to mental health?
Inspiring question.
Because I've been thinking, like, what was the attraction call to mental health?
A very long journey to my mental health career. From a personal perspective, back home, I had half siblings who were affected by mental illness. I was very, very young at the time. So, they went to secondary school. So they went to boarding school. This was what was, described to us as what happened to them. So again, they said they went to boarding school and, they were leaving boarding school, jumping the fence, going to nightclubs, and then, take substances. And then all of a sudden they started having, problems, psychosis and things like that. And then, of course, as in Africa, there's misconceptions, they're saying, because it was about 4 of my actual half-siblings, all boys of the same mother. They say, well, it's voodoo. I mean, it's impossible for all of them
to just be in that line.
Her problems. But however, again, it's not impossible because all 4 of them might have been engaged in the same activity, right? Mm-hmm. So even that time, if you think about it, we're well over 40 years now. So again, the support systems or the understanding of mental health is not as much as it is now. So we are kind of putting chains. These practices are still there in Africa. We get chained anywhere and get locked up. But anyways, I came to UK. I joined the British Army. So I was in the British Army. Whilst I was in the British Army, I served in Iraq in 2007. It was so I served in Iraq. But whilst I was there, one of the guys, I was a colleague of mine, Zimbabwean captain from the military. He was a mental health nurse there in Iraq. So me and him used to have a good interaction. I mean, supporting other colleagues out there. So I took interest in understanding all these mental health issues. Of course, having back home experience. So when I got back to the UK, and I then went to my mental health nursing initially. So once I graduated at City University in London, I worked in a few hospitals. Then I went on to do, interestingly, a master's in war and psychiatry.
I saw that.
Yeah. So that was, again, coming from Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
But, was 10 years old when the civil war started there. So it lasted for about 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
So just towards that end of that civil war, then I went to the UK. But then, having seen that aspect of war from, a victim, put it that way. So we've been working in Qatar, the other side of being a soldier there. So the course, War and Psychiatry, interested me because it looked at the psychological effects of disaster, war, whether it be earthquake, whether it be a hurricane, just the psychological effects of disaster. So again, that actually increased my my appetite for this talk, because it doesn't just stop within someone who is stressed, someone who's depressed, or someone who's lost schizophrenia. Again, it goes to the wider public health population because there's war, like a whole town, a whole city,
like a country,
we see the logistic side of things where people's houses get, bombed and things, and people are displaced. There's no house, there's no food. Then this other aspect kick in. Hence why, as I finished my master's, I went to work in Sierra Leone with this. The Ebola then started.
Yeah.
I applied for this job through UN Jobs. So I was there. I worked there for 15 months, actually. So I came back, worked in UK for various settings. So again, just trying to advance my knowledge in this space. I took on the PhD in mental health to do, more research into this, understanding, again, what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
The misconceptions across borders, being the West, and then in Africa, again, a lot of the knowledge, again, across the world now, I should say, working here, working in UK, working in Sierra Leone. I also worked in Uganda briefly with, youths that were affected by the conflict in Uganda.
Yeah.
So, bringing all this knowledge is something, again, I would like to impart in other countries that have not got systems in place or have structures in place to try and spread that word, just what we're doing here right now, so our listeners to actually get more understanding about this topic, especially for our folks coming from Africa.
That's really interesting, because I really wanted to know why you chose that part. Because not just most times people who go into mental health courses and career, they're being motivated by something. All right, either from where they're coming from, their life experiences and all. So it's good. And the most important thing is you're adding value to the society now. You're helping people, you're upgrading and promoting this cause. But what I want to talk about is masculinity, all right, that actually affects men, which makes them not to speak out. A man wants to be a man. At home, at work, in the social space, they don't really want people to see their weakness or weaknesses because of the fact that they are men. They have family to protect. They don't want their family to see them as being in that position. They don't want their friends to see them in that position. This actually is a killer. So I know we've shared a bit on this, but I want us to actually focus on men, because it's men's mental health mods. Let's give them that slot. Yeah. Let's actually focus on men. I want you to speak to them, okay, where it touches them most, on how they need to know that masculinity does not really protect you. It causes you more danger.
Yeah.
So that's what I would love you to share light on.
There's a saying, they say, men will always be men.
Yeah.
Yes. And then those aspects of being macho, of, being strong. Yeah. But then, as we've already been alluded to, the issue that affects everyone, mental health being the issue. For men, we'll probably need to start understanding that this mental health issues can affect anyone, especially as a man, at any point in time. Because when you look at some of the statistics, you see a lot of women are able probably to communicate how they are feeling, whether verbally or by doing something that would show that they are not okay. You get even people towards the extreme where they will kind of do dangerous things like self-harming, cutting themselves, or taking overdose of medication and things. But whereas if you got completed suicide, probably there's a high percentage of men, because they struggle to come out. They bottle a lot of things. They carry a lot of things heavy. It gets to the point where they are unable to offload that. It's become so much. They are unable to offload it, and they think the only way to offload it is to probably not to be here again. And then you don't want to be in that space, because when you're in that space, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. It can affect you as an individual, your wife, if you're married, your sibling, your colleagues. It affects a lot of things. So once you start feeling that you're not Olu anymore, this is not me. It's not. When you start seeing that you're getting more irritable, like you say to me, Idris, can you please pass me that? On a normal time, yeah, there you go. But when you start asking me, can you pass that? Why are you always asking me? When you start noticing that your reaction or your response to things are changing, then you should start reflecting back. You start thinking, why am I reflecting? And also start being a good listener. If people are saying, actually, I've noticed some kind of change in him. Try and understand what do they mean by this. That'll help you understand what might be going wrong. And then also, if you're seeing things like your energy levels are not the same, the way you were so energetic about life, you want to travel, you want to go and work in this country, that country, it's all different now. You see that you're spending money in gambling, you're spending money in alcohol and things, and you cannot control it. Then you need to start thinking, what is the actual problem? What has gotten me to this? Because you always need to try and find out what is the problem. Now the problem of drinking, the problem of taking substances, the problem of staying out all night, the problem of not looking after your family, not spending money or spending time with them is secondary. But what's actually triggered all of these things is what you need to find out. Sometimes you might not be able to find it yourself, but allow people to support you in understanding what the problem is. Because say, if you can stem the flow, or if you can cut off the source, then these other things will help themselves out. You can just be having that problem wherein maybe you have issues with marriage, you have issues with relationship, you have issues with money, and those issues haven't been sorted, and you're trying to fix your drinking problem. I want to go and see somebody to help me with my drinking problem. You go there for 1, 2, 3 sessions, but you still have
the root cause is still there.
The root cause is still there. We need to get to the root cause and then try and unpack that. Try and help you understand what is this issue. Try and help you either come into terms with it. Because sometimes people, or like men, for example, I'll say, now we're speaking about men, might have underlying issues in the past that are only now surfacing now they're an adult. As I said before, depending on your upbringing, if somebody's, been through difficult challenges and abused in the past, they've been in an abusive relationship, and now they're in this space. So if you are, say, you're in Africa, for example, you're going through these issues, but there's a community. You're meeting your uncle, your auntie, you're in events. So you don't pay attention to that issue that happened to you 10 years, 15 years ago. Now you find your space in Qatar. You don't have that social network. You're now in a space of big ball of thinking, big space, which means you start thinking about things that happened 10 years, 15 years ago. As you're thinking about these things, they have an impact in what is happening to you right now. So you see, so the past can still affect the present. So once you know, or you start seeing these changes and you start reflecting on this, and then you should start looking at a way of looking for help. And then what we're doing now, I think, is the right way for people to know where to go for help. Call the helpline, go to your primary healthcare, look for body systems, people around you that you can communicate these issues with. And then it comes from the person themselves that are having these problems, but the main solution also comes from us that they are coming to with this problem. How we respond. I need to be able to be in the space to give them the time. We have busy lives. If you come up to me or when I need to speak to you, I'm not feeling this way. Man, always you come over this issue, man. I have my own problems, man. You come here, what is the issue? Now you're not sleeping. Man, go. Nah. You need to we are boys. Yeah. We guy will come and we say, come on, man, take a drink from the sit down. But we need to take this thing seriously. If these guys walk up to us, he's then spent his time and sat down and had the courage to tell you, say to you, man, I'm really struggling now. You need to sit back. What is this thing you're struggling about? Don't put it in that macho man business. Because this guy who's going to go, his problem is still not solved. And he's seeing you as someone, he's not going to solve his problem.
He won't come back again.
So you're going to be one of the person that's going to make him sit at home because you're the only person he was coming to. So you see, one is the person, but two is the people who are going to support these guys.
Thank you so much. You see, this is very important. This is why platforms like this exist. And that brings me to the question of what is the role of social media in advancing this drive for mental health, its illness, awareness, and all. How can organizations, how can the government, how can structures use the social media space? Because individuals spend more time on the social media. You understand? Whether in Qatar or in Africa or any part of the world. So how can we use that as a channel to convey this message, this awareness to the people?
That's a very, very good question. And how powerful social media is in terms of the audience you will reach. But it goes back to responsibility. It goes back to funding. When you go, for example, you go onto Instagram platforms and you see adverts coming up, they've been paid for.
Yeah.
Well, these people, of course, they're expecting a return of investment. This is what this guy was talking about in one of the presentation yesterday, your ROIs. So, but then in some of the research, if you invest in spreading the message out, putting systems in place, then your return of investments is probably higher than an organization who is not spending, or similar organization who isn't spending as much. So if people are not seeing that by putting out these posts, they're going to make money, they're not going to put out posts about mental illness. So organization or charity organization, probably to the specific, might want to do more, probably through spaces like this, organizations like this, going up to charities to say, I am doing this work. I want to put out this message. I need this amount of money, or can I give you this work so you can put it out, so it can go around, so people can reach out this message? Because not many people go on and tune into radios, and sometimes even in the radios will allow a small amount of time. If you go on YouTube, videos will run for a long time. On Reels, it can pop up every now and again. It's in your face, so you understand it's there. But who's going to be paying for this? Who's going to be creating the content? Who's going to be coming up to spend time like we're doing now to talk about the issue? It's again, if organizations take responsibility. I know my organization will do a lot of work from the helpline. The lady who's there, one of the directors, Kasia, does a lot of work with not Qatar, a lot of industries, as I said earlier. We did a webinar before, which was open to the public. We also did it in Qatar National Library. It's about having these spaces. But sometimes these things happen, but there's not enough communication to tell people that these things are happening here, and this is how you register, and then this is how you have access to it. There needs to be more advertisement and whereas things, billboards and in other places where people can see these things happening and they can listen to it. It's not that people don't want to listen to these things, but it's not that fellow. It's not in their face.
Yeah.
And they're not going to look for it.
True. It has to come to them.
Yeah.
It has to come to them. We've already said that it's not something that people want to accept.
Yeah.
So they will start going to look for it.
Yeah.
Materials on that when they've not accepted that they have.
Exactly.
So this is the point, and this is the way to go. We need to do more publicity on this, more awareness, more campaigns need to go around.
Yeah.
People need to see this message as often as possible. And most importantly, our viewers, it is okay not to be okay. You have that feeling that you think something is wrong. Don't hold it back. Speak to someone, because not speaking is what leads to suicide. It's what leads to it getting worse, getting out of the controllable state.
Yeah.
So identify this early, speak out, seek for help. There's nothing bad for you to seek for help. It's needed. It will help you to keep yourself alive. That's the most important thing. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. We want to talk. There's so much to talk about. All right. There are so many questions I want to ask more for our viewers to learn and to know more about this mental health issues and challenges. But it's also important for us not to keep you here too long.
Yeah.
But before you go, we want you to speak to this camera passionately, all right? Because this is a very important topic. We've said a whole lot, but in a way to crown it up, I want you to just take the next 30 seconds to talk to our viewers, to let them know why it is important for them to speak out, let them know why it's important for them to seek for help, and to also let them know that harming themselves, taking those tough decisions is not actually the best way out. All right? Just in a short while, and also the reason why institutions should also come in. All right, please.
And absolutely. It's a very important issue that we've been discussing here, as we say, affects everyone. And as you hear the slogan already, is okay and not to be okay. But most importantly, we need to take this conversation, this issue very seriously. We need to check on each other. We check on each other with our hearts and our head. It needs to be humanistic. It's not a question of how you doing? Okay. And then leave it there. You need to prove further. When someone is missing, check where they are, what's been happening, why have they disappeared all of a sudden, what is going on, ask them out to go and have a conversation. All of these things will help. But also, for us to share and spread the message to our institutions, for them to do more in raising their awareness, and then for people to advocate for the people that find themselves in situations where they cannot support themselves, so they can understand where to get this help, and then so they can get the right help that they need before things become unmanageable. So look after your health, understand when you are not okay, understand when you're not sleeping well, when you're not eating well, when you're not engaging well, when you've just lost appetite in all of the things that I used to do, and then ask until you get the answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I believe our viewers have heard you loud and clear, and it's very important to hear from experts. All right, it's very important to hear from people who are passionate about this cause, and I believe this episode is gonna be a life changer and a lifesaver for so many of our viewers. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been so amazing. I told you from beginning before we started that it's gonna be a very interesting session with Idris, and we've not disappointed you, I believe. So please, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? Let's keep growing this community. It's our community. So we have to grow together. We have to keep pushing. It's yet another interesting episode. Next week, you're going to get yet another interesting episode. We keep growing one step at a time. So follow us on all our social media platforms at The Inside Qatar, and then make sure you share with your friends. So before we let you go, there's what we do normally to all our guests who comes on the show. We always give them something to go back with. So this time we have for you, this is our little gift to say thank you for coming to The Insights, and we hope you like it.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so good. Looks heavy. The 8 sites fostering Africa-Arabia connection. Love from Qatar. It's a pleasure for you to have me here, and thanks so much for inviting me to share my experience and my thoughts in this very important and timely conversation.
Thank you so much. But lastly, you've been in Qatar for how long now?
4 years now.
4 years. So you want to tell us your Qatar story in 2 minutes?
My Qatar story, I would say, has been amazing. I mean, after living in the UK for many years, I wanted to make the change across the pond to come here and then do what I'm doing currently, working within the mental health service as a specialist in intellectual disability. It's a growing issue on top of mental health problems that we do have as another topic of discussion. So I'm here with my family. We're settled in. My boys are okay. Things have been going so well. We're well looked after. And, you know, Qatar is a place of many opportunities. Of course, there's infrastructural developments. They see people from various parts of the world here that you can interact with and you can gain a lot of benefits with. So, you know, I love it here, and I'm happy to share my truth.
So what will you say to Africans back home who have not visited Qatar before and who would love to consider Qatar, or people who have wrong perception about Qatar?
I would say it's always good to take the leap. You know, when I was in Sierra Leone, we only hear about US, UK, Canada, Australia. But I tell you what, you come to Qatar, you will also see something different. I do travel every now and again to other countries, US, back to UK and other parts of Europe. But I must say I love Qatar. I feel safe here. I think Qatar is one of the safest countries. Doha is one of the safest cities in the world. And then, you know, my kids roam around. I can leave my car unattended without anyone stealing anything from it. So I'm very happy here and I feel safe here. If you have the opportunity, you should try it and come and see it for yourself.
You've heard from him. So what are you waiting for? Qatar should be your next stop. So get ready, come to Qatar, come experience what Qatar has for you. And thank you so much, viewers, for joining us on today's episode. And until next time, please take care. And remember, it's okay not to be okay.